Okay, so a lot of you underrate the cast shadow. I don't know why you do. I don't know, maybe because it's not within the outline of the drawing, and all your life in drawing you grew up thinking that everything within those lines is the most important priority of the image. That's why so many of you don't really know what composition is all about, and why so many of you are weak with composition. Because you spent your entire time, and I don't blame you, dealing with a character, with how to draw shoulders and eyes and a nose and putting it together and making a character work. So in that backdrop of knowledge that you have, you can produce a really, really good photo reference image just like this. But there's a great deal of awkwardness about this, and a trained eye will see it. And what it is that it's lack of environment, lack of presence around it. So much realism in the character itself, but zero environment outside. That does not work. It works in an abstract environment, meaning it works when you are on purpose having lack of realism, or abstraction or data art, or something really, really odd on purpose. That's when it gets really freaky, and it sort of enters that uncanny realm. Not uncanny, but the sort of the disturbing. Like, think of that melting clocks image that had a lot of realism, and you break that. It's kind of an extensive metaphor, but the realism was sort of broken in the sense that the clocks themselves were melting in an almost real environment, a lot of atmosphere, and so you juxtapose the unreal with the real, the impossible with the possible. So I'm not saying this is anything like that. What I'm saying is we've got all this realism in the head, and in the bust and in the character, and yeah, you have that sort of artistic melting of the image, but it's nowhere near any of the realism, and it's not really making any impact stylistically. It's just, even technically it's not making an impact. There's no serious brushwork happening, or extensive brushwork, or extensive texture. It seems pretty easy to just, get a couple lines and throw them down. So it's nothing to marvel at in that department. Yet it's taking up this entire section of the image. And of course, this realistic character, with all the lighting that is cast on him as you've used from the reference, has no cast shadow. So what basically you did is you switched it. So instead of having a cast shadow, let's see how his cast shadow looks like. Instead of having a cast shadow, you sort of ignored that cast shadow. Well, where in the original image, that cast shadow is extremely vital to the drama of the backdrop. It's a very compositionally, like, it's done on purpose, sort of, because gives a nice little sort of example of sort of the schizophrenia or whatever it is that he's in. The blue and the yellow versing each other, the symmetry, the mask that's on, and the fact that it's cut off near the bottom, so it's just a typical mugshot. So what I'm saying is you're copying an image that's already made. There's very little you can do to make it any better. So either choose for it to be, because it's already so well photographed, choose already from the beginning where you want to take it. Do you want it just to be a duplication, or do you want to play with it a little bit? If you play with it, you're going to have to learn what you're playing with. Learn all the pieces that make up this image. The main pieces that make up this image are the Joker himself, the background, and the gradient. Well, not the gradient, it's not really a gradient. And the mugshot line, the height lines. All right, the ruler. So you can play with those however much you want to, but you have to make sure that you are not sacrificing certain elements of the realism because, well, you just didn't appreciate them enough, or whatever. The cast shadow is really important. It's really, really important to his placement against the wall. This is a mug shot. He's standing against the wall. That's the point. That's why he's standing like this. He isn't standing like this thinking about philosophy or whatever. He's standing there because he's experiencing a mugshot. He's in a mugshot. So he's in that environment. So you have to show what your character is experiencing at the moment, and the props inside that are affecting that. Um, I'm not sure why I did that. So that's my only criticism, is you extended the canvas too much. You didn't capture the fact that it was a mugshot, because that's what it is in the reference. And the most important thing, you can do all of this and get away with it, is the cast shadow. The cast shadow is what this image is all about. We've got a cast shadow over here. that you didn't capture on the nose either. So you do not have an appreciation for cast shadows, where cast shadows are really, really important for illustrating um, a whole new level of realism. Um, so what I want to show you, stupid goddamn tablet, sorry, is I want to show you sort of where they really happen on this image and what they do. So of course they want to make him look horrifying, and they can't just do the typical light coming from the bottom, campfire light, with the flashlight and just scaring everybody with that. No, you would lose too much, and it's a really cliche way of introducing a crazy character. So what they did, which was really smart, was to just brought it from the side, and you got the cast shadows, the horrifying cast shadows. So as part of the drama, and the cast shadow and the drama are linked in this image, and that's something that you have to observe and reproduce at the same time as you're observing and reproducing the form as you've rendered it here. So you did a good job with that. You got that down. You got the main shades down. You got the symmetry of the face down. You got the design. The proportions are all down, except for some really, really vital form rules like the cast shadows you ignored. Cast shadows, you don't know form yet till I start seeing cast shadows in your studies. If I don't see cast shadows in your studies, but they are there in your reference, it means you're not reading them. It means you're blind to them. You're not actually seeing them. You're not seeing lines crossing across the image, um, uh, responding to a light source at an angle. Do you know how this is going to sound really dramatic and over dramatic, but do you know how serious that is? When you have a cast shadow pointing to where the light source is, that's a relationship of form and light. That's a direct, the light is caught red-handed. That's what I'm trying to say. The light is caught red-handed as the culprit behind the drama in the image. That's an amazing thing to encapsulate. That's an amazing thing to see. So, uh, try to think of that and remember to have that in your images. You need to look at the cast shadow, look at the units of physics um, uh, that are present in your image, especially if you're using a reference. I mean, if you're using a reference, you depend on that reference 100% if you're doing a photo reference or you're doing a photorealism. So that's what you guys have to think about. You can't just copy the form. There's a great deal of form involved in cast shadows as well. It tells me that if you caught the cast shadow and you drew it, it means that you are understanding the fact that this is a 3D realm. So you would be seeing, god damn it, you would be seeing this z-axis right here. Does everybody see that sort of? This z-axis, the cube, you're seeing that. And in seeing that cube, you see the other cube over here. So this is a bad sort of cube placement. But that's technically what I'm trying to say. Maybe it's more of an angle. Just like this. So I'm just trying to get the general cube of his head, but also the cube of the side of the nose. So this side of the nose here stands in the way of a vector light, and casts a shadow that directly points back to where the light source is coming from. That's what shadows do. They are a line, and if you trace that line back, you will find the light source. I don't know about you, but that's something important in physics. It's an important physics rule, important in observation, and important in art, and you have to catch that. All right, so that's the power of having a cast shadow. It takes your form to a whole other level. If you don't trust me, or if this is not enough for you, or feel like, okay, I can do this later, I learn form and contours first and shading, and then I'll do it later. No, do it now. Because for a long time I thought like that as well. I neglected serious sort of rules with shading, and I never knew why my images never took that final push, never pushed the realism that far, and my characters weren't that believable. You know, they were shaded and they were all pretty, but it was so mediocre and so crappy. I hate my art from the early days, because I just took so many shortcuts and I didn't bother dealing with the physics head on. And that's why I'm constantly, waving the physics flag in these classes. It's everything to do with a successful image or successful drawing. All right, so don't forget that. So good job with capturing the colors, though. Very nicely done. I'm gonna look at the other ones really quickly and then spend the rest of my time on this. So for this background, you guys probably guess what I'm gonna say, and it is please, please, please. Actually, let me restart Photoshop because the pen pressure is not working. So please don't paint with a white background. It's not good. If you're painting with the white background, like, it's going to affect the way you choose your colors, and that those colors, if you spent a lot of time on them, you will build those colors as your taste. So you will always have a taste for really saturated, bright colors. It will be really difficult for you to deal with dark situations. You won't be able to deal with dark settings as much. I have this problem, and I have a problem where I don't know how to paint with a light background because I've avoided white for so long and worked with the darker colors so long. I've developed a serious, serious taste. I'm aware of it though. I've developed a serious taste for dark colors and pastel colors and really super desaturated colors. They're my favorite colors. So I fixed that. Sort of, I've been fixing it and I've been on it. But I'm just telling you, I'm dealing with this right now, and I'm telling you directly, if you paint with light colors, even if you know how to draw, even if you're like the best at line art and sketching, and you're the best at anatomy, and you're really good with character design, and you set that up really nicely. You're good at placing your character in a canvas, enough space for the top and bottom. All that is checked out over here in this image. But the white background, I'm worried that that will become something of a crutch that you depend on. Your colors, basically what I'm saying, the colors in your mind when I say orange, that color that you see in your mind when I say that, I'm afraid that color will be the only color you know, and it will only work if you have a white background. You won't have those deeper oranges. You won't have the oranges that work with a medium gray or a dark room or an orange that comes out of a cast shadow into some light. So you won't understand the relationship between colors that are in shadow transferring into light, so colors underneath a cast shadow. It will be really difficult for you to read saturation levels in colors and saturation relationships between colors. So is a saturated green the same or matching a saturated orange at the same level? All of that is impossible to see with a white background, because the white background works as a whitewash. It lifts your values up. If anything is dark, even at the medium level, it'll look too dark. So let's choose a color right now from the medium. This is the respectable zone. This is the normal zone. This is neutral. This is what you want to work in. You never want to choose colors from up here. That's pretty much what you're choosing. You're choosing colors, not the shadows, though. You're choosing the base colors from way up high. That's not good. That's not good news. The blue is a bit dark. Actually, that was the shadow. Your shadows are midtones. That's not good. That's not good at all. So let's choose like a mid-tone orange. Let's choose like a nice actually not orange. Let's choose a blue. Like a mid-tone blue. Really, really friendly blue. Will work with a lot of colors, and just place it beside the colors you've chosen here. It'll look really dark. That's a pretty dark blue. That blue will just bring all of the values down with it. And that's sort of where you chose the shadow of the other blue. That blue looks like a shadow or a shade color beside all of your other colors. And that's not good. That's a mid-tone color. Let's choose a skin tone color from the midtones. Skin tone usually goes up a little bit, but not that high, not past no man's land, which is where you're choosing your colors. Alright, this is a really, really good skin tone color. And it's the shadow of your skin tone colors. That's a problem. It isn't your fault, because what you've done is you've managed to match all the colors well against the white backdrop. But that's what I'm saying. Be careful, because you will always start choosing colors like that, and you will continue to be sort of drawn into the high value colors. There's nothing wrong with having tastes. That's okay, but you will be disabled. You will be artistically and colorly disabled. Colorly, you will always need a white background in order to make readable color relationships or readable color palette. Beware of the white background. What you need to do is, of course, change the white background to, if you want it to be colored, go ahead, but make sure the color is something that you can manage, a color that you can work with. It can even be this color uh, if you wanted it to. Oops. Which is a just fine color. This color is just fine. I just literally just chose the skin tone color that I had. This color is just fine. You can use this color, no problem. Just now her skin tone seems to be a little bit, no, it's too dark. It seems to be a little bit light. And so what we would have to do is, I can't make that skin tone match unless I'm increasing the value way up. It's just simply not working. I would have to directly change the skin tone colors that you have in there. So I'm going to bring down the saturation, raise the value just a little bit. I want to keep it at this level. And then, let me see if I can do this. Select inverse. Okay. Can I do this? Yes. So what we want to do is bring down, I'm going to try to do this really carefully. As I bring down her values, I'm darkening her skin, but I'm also saturating so that I could balance it. So we have a more sort of close to real color palette, where before it was a little bit hard on the eyes. Now if you go straight gray, it works. Whereas before it wasn't really, it was a bit too light and had a very specific kind of background it needed for those colors to exist. So before they were really washed out and that white was really blinding. It's really difficult to get a good hold over one arm and just look at it and appreciate it because the white is right there. But now that we darken it, the character can really come out. You have a high saturation code, and it doesn't need to be even saturated at that point. It doesn't even need to be, you don't need to change anything specific about any kind of color. All the colors where you had them before were matched already because you matched them already against the white. But start choosing from more matured color palettes. Don't choose from that white. Choose a more, I guess, ripe color. It will give you sort of a better variety and more versatility when you have to deal with other environments. So learn how to paint against a gray background. Not only do you have to present like that when you work with a commissioner later, or if you want to get hired, you're going to have to do a gray background. Nobody works with a white background. It's just too blinding. It affects the values too much. Not only will you learn how to do that, but you will also mature your color color knowledge. You will get more acquainted with what a saturated orange looks like and how it relates to a green or a purple. Alright, so right over here it's a bit saturated for my taste. As you know, I like pastel colors. If we desaturate it all the way down, it still works, because that gray is just so friendly. But if we saturate it to this level against the white background with this shade, it would not have worked. You also can go really dark now that you have a gray background. So now that if you want to have a black at the very tips of her horns, let me desaturate. If you want to have a black at the very tips of her horns, go ahead. You can desaturate just like what I just did. I desaturated the whole thing. Now you can bring saturation in only where you really need it. So I'm going to desaturate and darken, her shadow. I'll gray it out in the distance. Now you can bring in saturation where you really need it. So we can bring the saturation in to her eyes, to the tips of her ears. You have a bit of an anatomy issue with the arms. You might want to look up a reference for that, for the knees. For the parts of her hair that are exposed to the, that are exposed to the light. So just the top parts of her hair. And I'm not gonna sit here and tell you about lighting and how important it is to do lighting properly. Choose a light source direction and respond to it. You have a really universal cell shading kind of light source right now. And even cell shading responds to a specific light in the distance. So you can do something where one light is coming from here and another light is diffusing it if you don't like the severe cast shadows that happen with one single light source or a universe like a sun. But if you're into that and you're okay with that, please start casting some shadows. Again, cast shadows are not the bane of your artistic experience. They help you. So casting a little bit of shadows here and there will really take the realism somewhere new. You want that. So I'm just casting a shadow in between her eyebrows, casting a shadow of her hair, over her dress. You have some cast shadows on the thigh from the dress. I don't know why you didn't continue it. Of course, that cast shadow gets less when the dress touches her body because it becomes one unit. You no longer have a cast shadow if the two objects are touching. They have to be separate from each other in order for you to have a cast shadow. You're bringing in some highlights from the side. These highlights should be coming from here. These highlights should be sort of responding to the light source, so you have a little bit of light here and here. Now you're sort of responding to a light source. So all of that are just suggestions. The drawing is very well done. Look up some anatomy for the arms. The arm is really big compared to the rest of the body. It's taking away from her delicacy as a fairy. And that's it. Nice colors, nice design, and nice stance. I really like the stance as well, the pose. Alright, so for this piece, when I saw it, and these are all from the Google Hangouts, by the way, guys. If you want me to look at your work, please join the Google Hangout group. Not the Google Hangout, crap. The community, the Google community. Join the Google community and post your stuff there. I usually pick and choose from there now. I do pick and choose from Facebook. Facebook is also another option, but I like if other people have seen it and they get the critique from other people as well as me, because that means the student is getting, great exposure, and that's really good. For this piece, what you've done is you've created a hole inside her, but right now her torso, if we were to see it from the side, her upper torso is facing this way. And then her bottom torso, or bottom half, sorry, is facing that way. So what we're seeing is the camera's down here, the camera's below her, and the camera's looking up. So if we have a hole in her chest, we're going to be seeing the inside, the top insides of that chest area. That's the only way this angle will make sense. So what you have to do, very, very quick fix, is just bring in some indicator of the inner workings of her anatomy, or else she's a paper. And you're drawing her so realistically, you don't want to sacrifice all that stuff that you've done and just make her out to be a paper, like a paper thin, because that's the only way this would have happened, that we don't see the inside of her body as if she was a flat paper. So just, a simple color, something, any indicator that she is a three-dimensional object. It doesn't have to be extensive. I don't have to see her intestines or her heart or her rib cage. You don't have to see all of that. You're not required. It is so stylistic already. You don't have to worry about any of that. And like I said, I already talked to you about this in the Google community. I said the arms seem to be a little bit awkward. They don't really have any gesture, any specific gesture they're all about. This arm seems to be broken. So it's like it seems to be permanently in that position, because that's the only thing I'm reading off of it. It's so stiff. I'm not really sure what it's doing. If I was a girl who was playing with her hair and had a hole in her chest, I probably would, and look as bored as she is, I'd probably just hang my arms on either side of my body. Don't overcomplicate it. Sometimes simplicity is the key, and you could really do a lot with simplicity. So I'll touch on the arms in a sec. But the breasts are a little bit wonky, so we're seeing the 3/4 view of this breast and the 3/4 view of that breast. So basically you're telling me what you were just saying is that this is her torso and her breasts are on the sides. Her breasts would not be that big. Um, it, I mean, they can be that big, but if they're that big, they would be affecting a lot about, you're going to place a hole in her chest. It's going to be really easy for you to deal with the anatomy if her breasts are smaller. Okay? So if her breasts are larger, you're going to have to show the contours of that hole. Maybe raise the hole up and then give the breasts their space. Or, what you did was you threw in the hole and then you didn't know what to do with the boobs, so then you just, threw them on the side. And that's all that I read from it because I don't see a groove here. I don't see cast shadows. I just saw the small breast cast shadows and then, that little bumps you had on the side. And those weren't reading. Larger breasts cast a larger shadow. They have a shadow on themselves and then they have the light shining on them. So that's the only way you could have sort of rendered the boobs out if they were that size, if you're into that. But you would still have to deal with this hole, so then you would have to show the sides of her boobs as they were cut out. See, you just want to stick to the smaller boobs and just tuck them in from the sides. So I wasn't finished. I'm just going to finish tucking them in. Okay, I'm going to fix this arm as well. That elbow is way too overstated. It looks extremely large and unnecessarily large. Or it can be very, very thin. If I was playing with my hair, I'd tilt my head the other side. So yeah, just thinking about that. If she was playing with her hair, let's tilt her head to the other side. It'll probably read way better if we tilt it. Shrink her head just a little bit. Yeah, it's reading better. Alright, so I'm going to just fill this in. Get the hard brush. So you see what I mean? About the arms not really going anywhere specific. And that way we can have a nice little fall or drapery on her hair as she plays. Because if I was playing with my hair, I would tilt my head toward my hand because my hand can't really reach that far. I wouldn't tilt it away unless I was playing with gum. And then at that point I'd want to stretch the gum and then I would pull my head away. But why would I want to stretch my hair? That would hurt. So typically I would just if I was playing with my hair or curling it with my finger, I would probably move my head toward my fingers like that. And then I'm just going to get rid of this arm so that the nice pose of her body is revealed. She's got a really cute pose going on, and you're just hiding it with this really awkward arm, and the arm is so bright, so it's even more awkward now because it's so obvious that it's anatomically incorrect, and it's just in the way, and it's taking away from, the cuteness of the pose and sort of the horror. Not horror, but like the macabre. Macabre. I don't know. I'm going to tilt this arm this way. Okay. And then I'm going to erase. Get rid of this. Right. And this. Flatten. And then I'm just going to fill in the rest. So do you guys see what I mean? You don't have to throw in a crazy gesture if you can't really execute that right now and your skills aren't really there to help you execute that. You don't have enough experience. Go for the simple pose. I'm just filling in blindly. I'm not even thinking about the gesture. Go for the simple pose, and then out of that simplicity you'll have a concrete, readable gesture. And still, even if it's simple, it doesn't mean it's easy. Alright? That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying choose an easier pose. I'm saying choose a pose that you... Why is the arm... Why is the hand lighter than the arm, or the head? It's really, really distracting, especially because the arm is not... The hand isn't drawn properly. It's at a completely different angle. I have to play with it a little. So yeah, choose poses that are simple for the photograph aspect, simple for the design aspect, not necessarily easy, but if you do have to do this fix after my critique, and you want to do a quicker fix that it looks better on your portfolio, you probably want to go for the straighter arm. You probably don't want to deal with that other arm. Another issue was the legs. So you always have to think about where these limbs are sourcing from. If they're sourcing from a bone structure just above, then, think about where you're drawing this leg currently, and you'll see that it's a little bit out of place. It's not really leading back. So we probably want to throw that knee back closer this way and then close it off this way. And then again, we'll have a more focused single gesture line that's cleaner, more simpler. Not necessarily easier. I like what you've done with like sort of the graphic aspect, the outline, the green outline. It's really cool. Just gonna do one last little fix for the hole. The hole has to look like it's sitting on a three-dimensional object, so it's going to be a little bit distorted, as if you have a cube with a circle on it. If you look at the cube from worm's eye view, you're looking up at the cube, the circle will also be distorted. The circle will look more like an oval. So that's exactly what's on here. If you looked straight at her, it would be a perfect circle, right? But if you looked down at her, up at her, which is a little bit of what's happening here, the circle would be distorted. So that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to distort the circle from being a perfect circle to a more sort of distorted along the angle. So there's a little bit of perspective happening. Alright, if she's walking forward and one leg is behind, you're going to have to raise this leg. So if she's walking forward a little bit, because I think that's what you're going for. If she's walking a little bit forward, one leg will have to be raised behind. Shrunken, which I will do in liquify in just a sec. Alright, shrunken, tucked in just a little bit. So, just like that. A little bit at an angle. I feel like the angle you have is okay. I just want to throw a little bit more on the side. Seems like she's on stable ground, flat ground underneath her. And you have the option of applying this little trick that you all know and love, which is shading off or fading off, adding atmospheric fade. Atmospheric fade does not happen in a closed room, okay? It happens only in a large expansive environment or landscape, and that's because there's so much land and kilometers and miles that are happening between you and the distant object, that there's air in between. Air has density, moisture, humidity, color to it, so it's going to distort that object. But we know that trick, and we're tricky little artists. So what we do is we go, hey, I can make someone think something is far away by using the atmospheric fade trick, but it doesn't have to be atmospheric fade. It can just be me tricking the person into thinking that that thing is fading off into the gray of the background. So all you have to do, if you don't know which color to choose to shade it, is just drop tool the background color and shade that in, and that person would be walking. I've really screwed up the hand, so I don't have time to shade the hand. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you where I would put that little hand piece. It would be in front. That might be like sort of holding her leg, just like that. Or might be a little bit more of an elegant hold, where her wrists are sort of laying on her thigh. Something like that, sort of. Alright. We would see more of the side of her hand than anything else on the hand, like the fingers. So I'm just pushing that in, just like this. So we would see the side of her hand, sort of what I mean. And the fingers just build up toward the piece of her hair that she's got a hold of. You want to make it look like a bit of a larger piece. And that blood that you have here, I'm going to fix the shoulder. That blood that you have there, you might want to throw it over the rest of the clothes, because you have it falling this way. So again, think about joints leading back to a dominant source, a torso. So I've done a lot to it, and I hope that's enough to sort of explain what I mean. The leg is still a little bit off. Oh, I just can't let myself. I have to do it. I have to tuck it in a little bit because it's really throwing off the anatomy. It's throwing off her balance. Okay. Liquefy. Gotta tuck that knee in to make it a little more straight. Please give me better quality. If you want me to critique your work, no one's gonna steal it. Don't worry. Yeah, there we go. Because I won't be able to go into liquefy. I'll lose a lot of detail going into liquefy if I don't have better quality. Right, so I'm just doing this. Just trying to fix that design you had. Yeah, the liquefy really messed with the details. I'm going to use sharpen tool to get them back. Okay, flatten, and now we can do the before and after. Damn it. Alright. Flatten. Before. After. Again, this is one gesture that you could have gone for. You can keep whatever gesture you had originally. Of course, if there was a reference you were working with, go to the reference directly and see what you sort of misread or didn't observe right. But if you do want to do this fix more sort of gracefully, you want to have a more graceful fix instead of having to redo the whole image or something, this is sort of one of the ways you can go. Simplifying it. We have one single character. We're responding to the angle and perspective. We've applied perspective. The little thing, if you want to know the name or the term of it, the little thing I added here, the term, the scientific term, the physics in this case is perspective. That's the perspective that I did. This leading back to one single torso, that's anatomy. You had an anatomy problem and a perspective problem. The gesture is also another anatomy issue. Gesture and anatomy are hand in hand. You have to think about a lot of anatomy for standing characters and gesture. This is depth. So this is the z-axis. This is a sort of the depth physics that I'm applying here. And that's it really, other than the canvas being a bit off to the left, or the character being a bit off to the left. That's all I would really change. Probably give her some more headspace though. Cancel. Just a little bit more headspace. Because she seems to be a little close to the top. Okay? So that seems like more of a focus character. If this is a character design, for a character design lineup for characters, and you have to lay her beside the rest, so she's like the magician girl or like the ghost in the game, or if there's like another, like, big guy, and there's like a bunch of smaller creatures, you're going to have a really simple pose. You can't have poses that hide away important parts of the design. So you can't have an arm in front of the body. You can't have too much of a gesture happening, because they do send it off to other artists to work with your designs. So you're going to have to learn to draw the more simple, concrete, and anatomically correct figure. Okay, so you have to stick to that. And good job with the background color choice as well. Alright, so now for this dude. First thing I'm going to do is sort of talk to you about some of the anatomy problems you have. I don't know if he's meant to be a chibi or something with an extra large head, but his head seems to be a little large. And what you've done here, he looks really, really feminine. And that's because of I don't know if you're used to drawing girls more than you are drawing boys. But if you do want to draw a boy, you don't want to do the big eye thing. If you've noticed in those Korean games, we've got those super skimpy little stupid elf girls. Their eyes are massive compared to the way they draw the boy. The boy is like half the size and eye as the girl. And he will still look cute. He will, trust me. But his eyes need to go a little bit smaller. And that's the way we're going to get the male to come through, because prepubescent characters don't really have, major, like, we can't just do this and make him, a guy. We can't just give him a crotch bump and hope people see it as a guy, because we can't depend on that right now. We can't give him humongous muscles. So I can't go and I do have to change his torso, but I can't just give him massive muscles like this as if he's a really, really small man. Um, I have to think about the fact that he is prepubescent. He doesn't have major gender signifiers or sexual organs happening. So I have to go back to those ogre versus elf. So he's still an elf. He's just got a little bit of ogre. Remember the ogre map and the elf. You don't have to cross into ogre world in order to have masculinity. You can still be passed and into the realm of beauty. He can still be a cute kid and still look feminine as well, because prepubescent always looks androgynous and always looks a little bit feminine. Boys that are young look more like girls than girls look like boys when they're young, because girls are girls. They're going to have big eyes the whole time. Typically speaking, I'm talking generally right now. So shrinking his eyes and giving him that boy face structure will really push, won't make him look old. Is that like an aftershave? I mean, not an aftershave. Is that like the shave grayness? Shaving, what's it called when you have that shave grayness, that bristle? Or bustle, or what, I don't know what it's called. But I don't know. He looks more like a boy to me now. Stubble, yeah, the stubble. Thank you, Tamala. The stubble. Is that a stubble right there? Or is that just like shading? I don't know. I don't know if the artist is here today. But, alright, I'm just going to square off his head. Girls have, caricature girls at least, or cartoony drawn girls. You want to have a little bit of cartoon. They have more of a circular oval head, and boys have a square head. So the way you wrap the hair around should sort of work just like that. Again, choose a specific light source. So I needed to zoom out the top of his head. I took it out a little bit. I just squeaked. Right, I'm going to push his chin in. I'm really thinking that's a stubble. He's starting to look like Tyrion Lannister. I need to take out the stubble before he becomes Tyrion Lannister. Bring in that chin light. And that's all you need. If you don't know how to shade a chin, just throw the base color over it and bring the highlight into the chin. That's it. That's it. Get rid of this line. You do not need it. Combine him with his background. He's no longer a sketch. He's got shading on him. So the line becomes obsolete. Class might hit a bit above 6 o'clock because I did want to work a bit on this, and I have some time today. I've had a lot of time lately. So just getting rid of the lines, trying to bring out that realism. And then this shadow right here, we need to start casting some shadows. Again, back to that. If you're not casting shadows, if you're not seeing, if we don't have a light source being pointed to, everything is just gonna look flat and dry and sort of really lame. I'm not saying this is lame. I'm saying lame as in, when someone has a lame leg, it's like you're gonna have a limp. The image is gonna have a limp. So please just cast some shadows. It'll give life. It'll give depth. It'll bring a lot into this image. To all images. So where else can we cast shadows, Istebrak? Tell us more. So there's some shadows. I'm losing my voice. So there's some shadows over here. So these are contour shadows, not necessarily cast shadows. There are some more cast shadows over here. Of the collar. There is a cast shadow of the sleeve on the body. And I do want to puff up that sleeve. I have just a desire to just make it the puffiest little sleeve you've ever seen. He's so cute and tough. See, now he looks more tough, If you give him that masculinity, it'll really look tough. I'm not even sure if this is a boy. Is it a girl? I'm not even sure if this is a boy. Like, I am just like on a fast, high-speed train to wrong right now, I bet. Alright, so I'm trying to make these little pieces bend along but respond to a shoulder. So they have a source point, which is the shoulder is where that puff starts, and the shoulder will give the puff contours. But the contours will be received at the elbow, but they have to bend on their way there. So kind of screwing it up. Give me a moment. So just like that, I'm trying to show that there is a little bit of a poof at the bottom. Do you see that? So that'll give me a chance to cast a shadow. Because his arm seems to be, or he was, before it didn't have much shape. Now it has a little bit of shape. Do you see that? That's info for the eyes. You think that's a small fix? That's not a small fix, you guys. That's really effective in bringing more information, a more intriguing shape. If you bring in a triangle shape or some sort of polygon shape and incorporate it somehow, it's more interesting. That's detail. Detail isn't just in shrinking your brush. Detail is an intrigue and an interest, and an intricacy. In shape. And of course, it's also in contrast as well. So yeah, I'm done. Made my point. So that light will stop right over here. Whoops, that was wrong. It'll also give a little bit of a bump over here. And then these little pieces, if they're illuminated, they will get a little bit of light, so we can show some dump. So we can show some, like it's a shinier fabric. And I'm just going to run the dodge tool over. And you see that? That's interest. I'm going to highlight, I'll desaturate. I'm going to highlight the top of his shirt. Wrong. Desaturate. So I used the dodge tool. It saturated on me like a little bitch. But I brought down the saturation with the sponge tool. And now I'm just trying to treat this as a three-dimensional object. The top part of his torso and his stomach will be in darkness. The top part will be in light because the light is coming from above. And the light on his shirt, I'm going to use some of it to unify with the light on his face, because his face is getting the same light source on it. And I'm going to get from what's on his face and throw it over to what's on his shirt. Because you will share the light source both in the fact that it's the same light source and the fact that it's the same color that you're using. So the light source unifies color as well because it washes over with its color. Is this a bare arm? Is this a naked arm? If it is, we need to see a more sort of tighter drawing of it. Just if you don't know what colors to use, just bring in your skin tone colors and you'll have your skinny arm. Again, please get rid of your lines. Some more cast shadows that you need are the shadow of the hair. You do have one in here, but it needs to be bigger, the shadow of the eye patch. How did he lose his eye? Little kid lost his eye? Oh my god. Poor kid. He may look like he's 10, but he's probably like 50 inside his heart from all the crap he's seen. He's probably fought ISIS. That's how he lost his eye. You might want to darken the darks of his eyes just a little bit. He's a skinny dwarf. Yeah, maybe. Oh wait, are you the artist? I'm going to bring in some light on his eye just on the outside to show the light source is present. And the God damn it. And the moisture of the eye. Right, he's probably squinting. So I'm going to give him a lower eyelid that you people always forget. Like I said before, the lower eyelid is not a mythical creature. It's a real thing. It's a real event. Right? If you don't believe me, just look in the mirror and you'll find a lower eyelid in its natural habitat. Upper mustache light, making his head feel more 3D. Do you see? As soon as I put that light on the upper part of his eye, upper part of his nose, lips, I got that realism. And then, of course, follow with a cast shadow. Oops, screwed that up. See, cast shadows are wonderful, wonderful things. Okay, and so when it comes down to everything else in the body, just think about a cube. So I'm literally going to cube out the pieces that I want to keep light. But everything else, I'm just going to shade. So select inverse, hide. So that part of the leg is a cube. These pieces are all in shadow except for the parts that stick out. Now I'm just going to lighten up the parts that stick out. Bring in that gray tone in the background. So again, you want to unify the colors with the environment. So if you want to do that and you're sure you're keeping that gray tone, bring in that gray tone over the highlights as well. That means that you're going to be affecting the main palette, which is the colored part, with the background. So I'm throwing that gray over everything on the face, and soon everything on the body even. Soon it'll unify with the background. It'll match the background color. So the gray isn't just sitting there not affecting anything. We're acting like there's an actual room in here. And it's gray and he's just standing in front of it. So I'm just going to get my soft brush, just darken everything back again. Just like this. Now we have more of a cube happening with his face. So, before, after. He looks more like a boy. looks like a girl. Kind of fixed his head because it was kind of really oddly shaped. Kind of made it tilt along with his face. He's got a bit more of a tougher personality now. That lower eyelid really brought in a lot of detail and a lot of personality and believability. There's so much more you can do with the shading as well. You can shade his hair, and that'll pop his hair out because it seems to be a bit flat. And shade it along the cube, please, just like that. Shade it along the sphere. It's not really a cube; it's a sphere, so it's not going to be a shade like a straight shading. It's not a, it doesn't look like this. Like this. It looks more like that instead of that. Alright, so you shade along. Someone making my stove explode. No, someone's cooking. Someone's hungry because someone skipped. Made soup and they didn't bother. So someone decides to cook in the middle of my class and interrupt my class as someone would usually. It depends on where the highlight is. It's really easy. You just have to think about the sphere, the hair on top, and where is the high point of the sphere. So a sphere, the awesome thing about it is that it's got a high point everywhere. It's got one side, and every side is the high point. Hold the ball. Point in any point in the ball, that's the highest point on the ball. There's no low point on the ball. That's the amazing thing about balls. Okay? So point at any point, get a basketball. Is that what a basketball is? Yeah. Get a basketball and point at any specific point. Put your finger on that part. Okay? That's the highest point. You put it here, that's the highest point. Here, 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 here. So you just have to think about where the highest point. The highest point is just, part that's closest to the light source. That's how you know. Did that answer your question, Tentalones? The closest part on the ball to the light source is the lightest point of the hair. The rest is all a curve away. Okay? What kind of laugh is that, Mambuto? Not really. So it curves which direction? In any direction. That's the thing about balls. My God, I'm so mature. It just curves in any direction. So draw any line on a ball. Of course, it has to be curved. The ball can curve that way. So if you know the light is there, and the hair is sitting like this on the ball, you just have to treat this as the highest point of the curve, and everything else is moving away. So that's the curve of the hair. This curve that I just drew is the curve of the hair. Okay? You just know where your light source is coming from. Exactly. Thank you, Ian Cub. You have to know where your light source is coming from. If you practice shading tape ribbons, you'll understand. Yes, Estvid, absolutely, absolutely. That's exactly right. If you think about ribbons around a basketball, you'll see what I mean by the curve. Okay? Do you know what's happening? Okay, so as long as it follows the ball, it's fine. Yes. Again, find the ball, find the light source going in a line, hitting the ball. This point is the closest to the light source. This point is the highest point of the curve. Throw some hair. This curve is how it will curve. Okay? Because light likes to sit, it will travel along the hair in that direction too. It's all about the hairy balls. Oh my God. Why did I read it? Now all of YouTube, the entire universe, the entire cosmos, all the aliens that are going to invade us are going to know that I said hairy balls today. I said it again. It's forever ingrained. Istebrak said hairy balls a third time. She doesn't even care. No shame. I don't care. I'm bad. The fuck? Okay, I think that's it for this guy. I wanted to look at this piece for a second. If you're going to make him gold, let me shade this one. If you're going to make him gold, you want to bring in like a different, again, he has to respond to the light source. Remember reflectiveness and shading, I did a class on that. Think about the main contours and then the reflectiveness follows after. So I'm just adding that reflectiveness now. So you got to think about what kind of material he is. If he's gold, if he's made of gold, he can't be this dark. Gold is too reflective, and the value that gold has is not like that. It has to be way lighter. So I'm going to go to Dodge tool on shadows and then raise this way up. The value you have here is the right value. And as soon as I raise his value up, you're going to see, oh, okay, so that's what's happened. You're probably seeing something wrong. Probably seeing him as not looking right, and that's because if he's made of gold, even copper, he can't look that dark. Because the value, gold doesn't get that dark. It'll have some shadow to it, but there's too much reflection happening for it to allow. Shadows. Sentences. Finished. After minutes pass. Sounds like spoken word. Okay. I'll get through this. I can do this. And change the color of the gold to be a more pale yellow. So a bit more green in it. I'm just going to take it all the way here. A bit more green. And then desaturate. And then as you desaturate, you lose stuff, so I have to make it. There we go. Yep. Okay, there we go. So let's look at where it was before. Really, really dark. And if he's supposed to be gold, that's not right. He has to be up here. Alright, and then for gold, when you have gold, you do not have, you have a yellow, orangey highlight and a deep orangey red brown in some of the shadow. So the deeper grooves have to have a deep orangey brown. You can't have it as one color that you use. So when you throw the color mode on, the color mode isn't going to do all your work for you. So I'm going to get that deep orangey brown and then place it in all the shadows. And then finally, please, 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 for me, don't outline. If you love me as your teacher, I'm literally just chopping them off. You don't even need them. Trust me, you feel like we need them? I promise we don't. I promise, I will see this parrot in all his glory still, and I will appreciate him even if the lines are gone. He will still be a glorious parrot. You kind of drew his face from the side. If you want him to look more 3D, you're going to have to give him a tilt so it would be more like that. Alright, so you drew an Egyptian side view instead of drawing the right kind of contour. So you need to tuck some stuff away behind this. See what I mean? Do you see what I just did? I tilted him along a perspective. So before, he was kind of like had a tilted beak. The bottom of his beak would have been on the other side of his mouth near the bottom. But now his beak is sort of facing forward. Yeah, the class is a little bit longer than usual. I'm very sorry. I'm just having fun with this critique. And I promised a thorough one. Can't go back on my promise. The other wing will be a little bit visible. Maybe just the dark side of it. And the other shoulder as well, please. Unless he's lost his wing. Okay, so I'm gonna do a really complicated little tip here. Alright, moment of truth. Can I do this? Can I really explain this? I don't know. Let's give it a try. Okay, can I do this? Yes, I can. Alright, so you see like these little pieces here? You've got all of this detail and grooves, and when you draw this and design it, you're gonna use lines, right? Everybody with me? So let's just say this is like the design. When you shade, okay, when you shade, you're gonna start shading around this, right? You're gonna throw the shades and you're gonna make it darker over here. The lines are gonna still be there. And you've come to a point where you're like, crap, Istebrak's gonna kick my ass and cut my balls off if I don't get rid of these lines. How the hell do I get rid of these lines? So, how you get rid of them, but still keep the detail is the question, correct? Everybody with me? Everyone's with me? Okay? Where's my light source? So your light source is here. So your light source is the key. Fuck. Okay, so what you have to, damn it. Shit. What you have to do is use this shadow to indicate to you where the cast shadow is. So this line becomes a cast shadow. This line is no longer connected to the object, it's outlining. I know that sounds really complicated, and I said it would be hard for me to explain this. But let's say these little bubble gold bumps, these little embroidery, I don't know what they're called, they are no longer the object itself. They are outside of the object. Okay? Do you guys know what I mean? So that means in order to get rid of the lines and not really get rid of them and keep them and have Istebrak not cut your balls off, is you make them the cast shadow. So all you have to do is extend the shadow just a little bit and combine it with that extra piece. And now look, the line is gone. We have a cast shadow in its place. Why? Outside the object. Yes, outside the object. Outside the object because you have this shade, you have the outline telling you, once you get rid of the outline, you're going to be like, shit, I don't have this object anymore. If you turn the lines off and your layers, you're going to be like, damn it, this doesn't make sense. Because you're going to see only your colors, and your colors, after you remove your lines, are probably just going to look like. That's what your color layer looks like without your lines, right? It looks really weird. So in order to keep your lines and keep your colors, turn your lines into, again, pointers of where the edges, because that's what lines are, pointers, but telling you where to cast the shadows for these intricacies. Do you see what I'm saying? So if this is, let's say, ridges, we get some of the light source, place the light along the high point of the ridges, so making them feel like they're sort of sticking out, and then this base tone right here is the limit of this one ridge. Oh my god, this is so complicated, you're probably not going to understand any of this. And this line becomes on top of the ridge after it. Originally this line belonged to both of them, but now it belongs only to one of them. And it's casting a shadow on this piece. And this one belongs to this one, and we push the lines outside of their realm so that they start combining. Do you see what I'm doing? They start combining to form the 3D, and the lines disappear, leaving only their influence as the pointers behind. Do you see what I did? Shit. So I got rid of the lines, but they're still there. They're just no longer lines, they're edges. And just throw a couple of highlights. Of course, this is really badly done. This is for the sake of the demonstration. Alright? So that's how you get rid of, I don't know if this was explained well, I'm so sorry, but over here, this is what I was doing. I got rid of that line, threw it over as a cast shadow on top of this little side feather, and now I'm just going to bring in a little bit of that gold and place it as the highlight on that gold piece. Maybe bleed some into this cast shadow, and we got rid of the line and we replaced it with form. Do you see that? Same thing over here. Get rid of the line. Use it as a cast shadow for the other side, as a pointer, as long as you know where the light source is. Remember, the light source is key here. Use it as a cast shadow, and then we're good. Right, so you see the highlight doesn't stay a circle, it gets cut off because it's part of a cast shadow. Same thing over here. You see this line? That outline in the ear? I'm just going to use it as a shadow, a cast shadow point. And then the light where the shadow stops. Same thing over here. Around this circle, you have a line. That's really flattening your image. Just draw over it. You can't really do a cast shadow in this case, but you can combine it with the shadow around. So now look, the line is gone, you have the object behind, and you have a beautiful relationship between form, edges, and cast shadows. And that's what form is. Same thing on the outline of the eyepiece. Take that shade, soften it up, cast a shadow. Line is gone. Does everybody know what I'm doing here? It's a really good way of keeping your lines and allowing them to help you determine what it is you're trying to draw and not forget right like as soon as you start coloring. And it helps you maintain the form so that you don't lose out by keeping the lines. Okay, so that was really complicated. I'm very sorry. I was just, I was waiting for an opportunity to explain that to you guys, and this is the opportunity showed itself. Yes, be opportunists. Right, so before, after. I don't know, the thing is too saturated for my taste. I'm going to bring it down. It is a bit steampunky, so there's a lot of rust involved. But yeah. Alright? So more form along his pants. Along his shirt sleeve, which has a lot of detail in it. Along his shirt. The top part of his shirt has a light on it, and the second half has a shadow. Or the lower half has a shadow. The eye looks a little bit more realistic, tilting along with the perspective of the head tilt as he's posing. His eye looks smaller. He looks more like a boy than a girl. As for the chest and everything, I really recommend doing some form studies. And at the end of the day, if I were to say if you have one big problem, your one big problem is that you shade around your lines. You do not shade around of shape. You need form studies, and you need more cube in your life, Mr. Artist. David Kataroshi, Pirate Kid Concept. Oh no, Divine Kataroshi, not David. I took my glasses off. Divine Kataroshi. Do form studies, please. Form studies will start making you see the cube, even if you paint a flower, even if you paint a towel. You will start seeing a cube. So thanks everyone for coming. Have a great day. Bye-bye.